Alright, what's up my ninjas? I'm Strident and I'm back with another video. This time it's some more Joe talk. If you hear noise in the background, it's my lunch period, so lunch period. It's my lunchtime. So I'm getting rid of food and stuff. I'm actually about to leave, but I wanted to drop this before I leave or record this before I leave while it's fresh in my mind. Thanks for all the feedback on the last Joe talk that I did. Um, so about a month ago, or maybe it was a little less than a month ago, Hasbro released information. Actually, come to think of it, it's been longer than a month. It was earlier in the year that they mentioned this shared universe idea with Micronauts, Rom the Space Knight, and M.A.S.K, and they were going to be intertwined somehow with G.I. Joe. And you notice that they left Transformers out of the mix because Transformers is so ginormous to them. They couldn't risk, combining it with the less profitable stuff. But anyway, around that time they had announced that because the people doing the interview, I want to say it was either His Tank or General's Joe's. Somebody from either camp asked them. They got a chance to talk to them at either a con or they emailed them directly. I'm just quoting the information, or I'm reporting some of this information or my thoughts on the information. You can look up. I'll try and find the links for those interviews. But they talked about how the movies are going to dictate where the figures go, the toys in general. And to that I say boo, because neither of the two movies, well, I shouldn't say neither. Rise of Cobra sold decently. You know what I mean? A lot of those toys, they were better toys than the movie was a movie. Even though, with time, I understood what the movie was trying to accomplish. A lot of what the movie was accomplishing was the feel of the old school show with updated, gear and updated ops. Operation parameters and such. So they wanted to give you the fun, that whole globe-trotting adventure feel, but update the gear and the look because they have to be a covert ops team to operate the way that G.I. Joe did. They didn't have the foresight I had with having a covert team as well as a public team. You have the Shadowhammer team, and then you have the colors, as I call them, which are your standard Joes. So Rise of Cobra sold fine. Resolute actually sold okay. It didn't fail, and Resolute felt more like it was a piece of the 25th anniversary stuff. So 25th anniversary stuff sold, with the exception of some of the busted Duke figures and the figures with bad articulation. And even those figures sold because you always have those folks that they have to buy everything. And we talk about them often on my channel because they're the reason why we're in this fucking mess. They're not very straightforward to Hasbro to let them know that to let them know that we don't necessarily like thing A more than thing B or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like, we don't necessarily like Retaliation. Even though there were some cool things in it, Retaliation was a complete step in the wrong direction, especially when it comes to the toys. As far as the movie, making The Rock the focus, it could have been a cool thing if you were going to resolve the whole issue with Duke. If you were going to come back and say, okay, this is a temporary thing, we're not going to make Roadblock the leader of G.I. Joe because we know how G.I. Joe works. Then we'd be like, okay, cool. For the meantime, he's the leader of this team while they think that Duke is dead, while they think the Joe team has been eradicated. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, as far as the toys go, there were some awesome toys that were released. Very few, but there were awesome ones. The freaking Joe Trooper is probably the best figure released in the last 10 years from G.I. Joe, from Hasbro. You know what I mean? Without any, without any upgrades or anything, just stock. It's one of the best figures they've ever released, and definitely one of the best in the last 10 years. Ultimate Storm Shadow Mark II, the one from Retaliation with the sleeveless costume, he was pretty awesome too, because for those of you who missed out on the 30th version, you got to get that one, which is closer to the cartoon than we've ever gotten before. Now, did it belong in the Retaliation line? Hell the fuck no. But they still put that in there anyway. Anyway, the point is, making the movie the stick by which you measure whether or not you should give us a toy line when the movie is based on action figures. This whole premise, it originates from an action figure line. To flip it and make now the action figure line dependent on the success of the movie is just asinine. And then even dumber than that is to mix up fucking Micronauts and Rom, the Space Knight, and M.A.S.K, 3 lines that they have yet to freaking rejuvenate on their own. What makes you think people want to see a movie of shit from like the 80s and the 70s that you haven't been confident enough to like give a rebirth to? You know what I mean? Like Rom, I remember stumbling across Rom in my best friend's dad's freaking stash of, I shouldn't say stash, but he had a stack of comics. And, well, comics and like Mad magazines and stuff from like the 60s and 70s. And somewhere in there was a Rom book along with like some old Morbius book and just a bunch of random stuff. And we were like, Rom, this guy looks weird. And then we remember hearing about him in that one Wu-Tang, it was a Wu-Tang Forever, where, what's his name, is like, a space knight like Rom, I consume planets like Galvatron, or Unicron, I'm sorry, blasting photon bombs from the arm like Galvatron. That, you know, the RZA. That was when we realized, oh, this is an actual thing. People read this shit. You know what I mean? Like, someone other than us came across this. So and there's probably been other references. Right now, that's the one that stuck in the front of my mind. But, Space Knight like Rom. Anyway, we were like, oh, Rom is a thing, you know? So I did my research, and I learned, you know, it was a pretty okay comic. It would have been cool to, like, update that shit, and there's no way you couldn't update it. It's a Space Knight. What fucking kid or big kid wouldn't get into well-done Space Knights? You know what I'm saying? Kamen Riders. Ryuki. Kamen Rider Ryuki is essentially Space Knights on Earth, design-wise. It's the knight motif, but they added all these elements like guns and blades and crazy armor and crazy swords, and then bikes on top of it. So they're like future knights. It's similar in presentation to what you could do with Rom, except I think Rom was a robot. He was like a sentient robot. So the sky's the limit. And they didn't even feel the need to do anything with that. Freaking Micronauts. If you ever see the original Micronauts series, this was something I actually had. Those designs and the artwork in the early books from the early 80s, I want to say. Fucking phenomenal. Oh my God, they were phenomenal. You know, like the art was just so well done. The designs, even though they were outlandish, they seemed to feel like something, like Acro Year and shit. Like his design worked. A lot of their designs worked. The scale of the overall the episode's scale. Not only was the things going on very big in scale, but the characters themselves, because they were miniature and they were fighting in like familiar surroundings, everything was drawn properly. The scale was on point. So you felt like when they fall off the table, it's a fucking high fall. You felt like when someone gets trapped in a fucking cup, it felt like, holy shit, they're stuck. You know what I mean? When they're fighting ants and shit, and you see how big an ant is compared to one of them, you're like, damn. So it was cool. Hasbro didn't do shit with that in figure form. Now you want to tell us you want to make movies of these guys? M.A.S.K. Let's not forget all the people who have clamored for a M.A.S.K. rebirth. I wasn't huge on M.A.S.K, but I played with M.A.S.K. toys. Hell yeah, I did. And I'm not against them bringing it back. But shouldn't they have done that first? And then based on the response of the toys, then you say, okay, maybe we should or maybe we should not include them in our shared film universe. I mean, chances are the designs that they come up with for the films might be better than what the toys would have been on their own. And we're seeing that a lot now. The film concept artists get to come up with more outlandish designs, bigger designs, crazier designs than a lot of the toys. The toys seem to be restrained in their design. And I don't know if this is a budgetary thing or this is just lack of imagination. But if you pay attention to the way everything is going in mainstream retail toys, it's lack of imagination. So I think what it is that Hasbro must have fired all of the good designers, or they don't want to work with them. They don't want to pay them what they're worth. They want to save all their money and let Hollywood do all the work. Then they want to take those designs, those 3D models, which will exist, those concept designs, which will exist, and then turn them into action figures and come up with their gimmicks and such based on what the movie provides for them, and then see if they can make money off of that. Which means G.I. Joe will be a mess because instead of being the franchise, it'll be one of 4 franchises. That's stupid. 5 if you count Transformers, but one of 4 boys, focused lines that may not necessarily be what we're looking for. You know what I'm saying? Because some people who like G.I. Joes don't like Micronauts, and they don't like M.A.S.K, and they didn't like they didn't know about Rom. There's a lot of people who don't give a shit. They don't know who Rom is. And it's weird because realistically, Rom should be a Marvel legend because it's a Marvel property. I guess the comics were Marvel comics. You know what I mean? He's a classic character like Robot Man. You should possibly throw him in there. Kind of like Ravage, or what was the name of the character? There was another character. He had some kind of a bird name, a bird like Hawk, or it wasn't Starhawk and it wasn't Darkhawk. Maybe it was Starhawk. Anyway, it was like a John Carter type thing, but in the future. I can't remember his name. I think it was Ravage, but it was similar to Ravage, and I know Ravage had ties to this book. But anyway, he's one of those classic Marvel sci-fi characters. He should be a Marvel legend because truly he would be considered a legend because he comes from over 30 years ago. Instead, they want to make a whole line. Whatever works for you. When it flops, it shouldn't be a surprise because you didn't give him the proper treatment. He should be, him and some of the characters probably him and his arch nemesis should be Marvel Legends. That way people can get an introduction to him. If the figure sells like crazy, then you can go deeper into his world, and then it would warrant you making a separate film just based on him. But anyway, I think this is all stupid. It's awesome for you to recognize older properties, older IPs. That's cool. But like to force us to have that in our movies, and to force the success of those films to be the stick by which we measure whether or not G.I. Joe should continue, that's just stupid. It doesn't take a genius to see that you guys ran out of ideas, You should farm out people with talent to come up with new ideas rather than force feed people shit they don't want along with things that they do want. It doesn't make sense. And this is my opinion. I think it's a logical opinion because that's the problem with a lot of people right now in our fan communities. A lot of the people we have, unfortunately, that are in our fan communities, they don't get a lot of things, and they just kind of run on what they want. Honestly, I could do without any of this shit. I'm good. If G.I. Joe is done, I'll go back and watch the cartoons because honestly what they need to do is they need a cartoon and then they need a toy line that's directly tied to the fucking cartoon. Plain and simple. Stop trying to make G.I. Joe the next Transformers. Stop trying so hard to get it right in film. You've had 3. This is your 3rd try. Call it a day. You know what I mean? Call it a fucking day. G.I. Joe and live action, for whatever reason, it doesn't work with the people that are in charge in this era. It's just not going to work. Wait 10 more years. Wait 5 more years. Maybe just don't do it. Maybe spend the money on an animated series that's done like a top-notch animated series. Then maybe you'll get the quality that you're looking for. Movies, you don't need them. You don't need to. Getting all these big names to push something that's bigger than them, that's kind of like, and you're getting people who don't get it. The Rock didn't know shit. He knows G.I. Joe exists, but did you ever hear his interviews? He was like, finally, Joe can fight someone who's formidable. Who is he fighting, they say? He's fighting Cobra. Now we made Cobra a more powerful guy. Cobra is not one guy, dumbass. Cobra is the organization. Cobra Commander is the guy. I don't know if he was trying to be vague so that we wouldn't be like, oh shit, Cobra Commander's in the movie, but we knew that because he has to be, because that would be the purpose for, this retaliation. It's Cobra retaliating against G.I. Joe. They caught him in the first one, and since this is a sequel, or was a sequel, it would be the retaliation of Cobra towards G.I. Joe. It's not rocket science. You have this dumbass talking all this stuff. All he wanted to see was himself on screen, marvel at himself, because that's what he does, and he earned it. He went through a whole lot. I get it. But you're part of a team. The team is the franchise. You want to do things that make this work. If you don't understand what you're doing, if you're going to retell it based on the actor's point of view as opposed to the franchise's point of view, and when I say that, I mean the franchise has been around for a long time, and certain things are the way they are based on the history of the franchise. You know what I mean? Like, events have happened that are key events that in almost every iteration of G.I. Joe, they try to keep some of these things there. Hawk was the old school leader, hence him at general status now, because you don't get there overnight. And then Duke comes in afterwards. You know what I mean? Flint comes in. I think Flint actually came in before Duke did. Stalker came in before both of them. So, in the early days, there was no Duke, there was no Flint, things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like the way that characters appear and their purpose and the roles that they fit. All this stuff is dictated to you from the comics based on their appearances, based on the events that, took place, the rivalries, the murders, because there's certain characters that get murdered, and for whatever reason, whenever they retell the story, they find ways to play with those things. There's all this shit that just needs to carry through. Like Chuckles. Chuckles is a wholly different person now from what he was in the 80s in the movie. In the movies, he was just another grunt, essentially, that had a costume. Now, that costume makes sense because they tweak things to make you get it. He wears plain clothes because he's an undercover specialist. That's what he does. So, undercover operations would call for someone who doesn't really look like anything. So he wears a jacket, he wears fucking regular pants, and then he wears a freaking Hawaiian shirt. And that's it. He's got a gun somewhere, and he can fit in on either side. He can look like a Cobra, he can look like a Joe in case those pants are BDUs. The way he's wearing all those clothes, it gives you the idea that he's not a strict soldier in the traditional sense. He is a soldier, but he's not adhering to those strict rules that active duty standard soldiers would have to adhere to. You know what I mean? Not the stuff in the manual. He doesn't have to have his boots shined and his pants tucked in and his his boots laced all the way up tightly, double knotted, etc., etc. He's not doing any of that shit. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't fit his particular function. These are all things that these cats don't pay attention to. And you would think, as crazy OCD, detail-oriented as you have to be to make a film, you would think that this stuff would have been out the gate stuff that they would have gotten right. You know what I mean? Like, some people hated stuff that was in Rise of Cobra, like dealing with a lot of the characters, like the fact that Ripcord was black now. The fact that he even had a focus was kind of stupid when you have characters that should have been in the front. Like, how do you put Ripcord in the forefront before you put Stalker in the movie at all? That doesn't even make sense. But that's what they did. Those are the kind of gripes I had with the film. Once they did it and they told you what his character was, I don't give a shit. Essentially what they're trying to do, how do you put Hawk in the film in the general status before you even give us a glimpse of the OG 13? Like, we needed the OG 13. That's where you should have started with. But apparently the vision is not there to have, a period film first. And when I say period, I mean it could be the 70s, the 80s, it could be the 60s, whatever. But it doesn't take place in modern times. First, and then jump to modern times. You could have done that. It would have worked. If you had a good cast, if you had a solid story with a beginning, middle, and end that made sense, and if you had twists that keep the energy flowing throughout. But they didn't do that. You know what I mean? They didn't have that kind of vision. And that's why the movies were kind of like, eh. It takes a long time for you to get to the point I got to with Rise of Cobra, where it was like, I get what they're trying to do. I see it and I can appreciate it on that level. Did they do it well? Not really. It was okay. They spent entirely too much money on that film for what we got. And then Retaliation, ugh, how do you miss the point so hard? You know? But I don't agree with what they're doing. I think it's stupid. I think it's I know saying it's stupid just sounds like, you know, the typical internet response. But it just feels like they're grabbing for straws and they're not even quality straws. Like, how do you make a shared universe with one thing that failed and three things that you haven't really tested? That doesn't even make sense. That's like what Universal is trying to do with their monsters. They've done a Frankenstein film. They've done the Dracula Untold. They're going to do the Wolfman and the Mummy, and then they're going to have a battle royale at the end. But if the first two things didn't really pan out, why are you continuing? Either their projections were very low, and they were just like, we want to break this number. You know, we want to break the million mark. we want to make even. You know, pretty much break even, and then we'll make another film. You know what I mean? Like, if that's what it was, then okay, cool, that makes sense. They had more realistic expectations. They didn't say everything we do has to be a blockbuster in order for it to be considered a success. But like the outcry, the response hasn't been amazing with all these newer films. Who is saying that you need to now do the Avengers thing or the Marvel thing and make a shared universe where there wasn't one? It's just stupid to me. It doesn't make sense. It's more of a risk than just making one film on a new IP. So this logic doesn't carry over to G.I. Joe. What you need to do first is get G.I. Joe right. Then you can say, okay, we got a success. Now let's move on to the other things. And then that would be understandable and no one would fault them for that. But this greed is pushing them in the wrong directions. This desperation is pushing them in the wrong directions. So we're going to get another mess of a film. Anyway, that's it for me. Get at me in the comments. I want to talk more on this. I probably will do another Joe Talk. Hopefully I'll get to do one where I get a bunch of people on and we all talk about it and see, you know, what comes up based on that. But anyway, that's it for me. You guys have been great. Peace outside.